Welcome back, everyone, after a long hiatus to another Company of Heroes 2 replay cast. And this time we are going to have a 1v1 on the glorious Kaminsk Pocket. And our players are going to be Whoopi playing as the OKW versus Avionics, who's going to be commanding the Soviet Onion down here in the south.
Fresh conscripts have arrived.
And we all know how Minsk Pocket is. Actually, this is a 1v1, which is not usually what I see Minsk Pocket, and it actually changes up the dynamic of the map quite a lot, as we're going to see. For a 2v2, it's a pretty tight map, whereas for a 1v1, it is actually very, very much broad and affords the players a lot of not only a lot of options, but a lot of problems as well with how to cover such a quote-unquote big map, even though for a 2v2 it's, again, kind of reductive and difficult to operate in.
Crew, stand ready.
Not a lot of room for 4 players. Anyway, we see that Whoopi is actually going for a Cuba wagon. Interesting move. Of course, he wants to make use of the mobility to help capture out some points. He's also going to use his Sturm Pioneers to attack on the right-hand side. The problem is, looks like these conscripts try to fight back and then they run away. Running away just to preserve themselves and let these other conscripts deal with these Sturm Pios, and it's working out pretty well. Sturm Pioneers have to escape, but with the 12 Mossad Nagants firing upon this Sturm Pioneer squad, they're actually going to be completely gunned down. That was unexpected and very, very bad, of course, for the Germans, but we are going to have a replacement Sturm Pioneer built and ordered instantly, which is probably a pretty good choice. And now a second Volksgrenadier is probably going to send these conscripts home, although they do decide to charge in at close range to get into the heavy cover. Maybe not the best idea ever. If you charge in so close, your heavy cover bonus will mean nothing because it is ignored when the enemy is 10 spaces. It's within 10 spaces from your unit, and as you can see, the first squad of Volksgrenadiers is taking a lot of damage from the first squad of conscripts, and yeah, he's gonna have to escape if he doesn't want to lose another squad. So a second wipe is achieved by the Soviets. Of course, they're gonna lose the engagement in the end with the conscripts just moving into from Molotov cocktail. But that's not going to be enough. Let's see if he can wipe out a Soviet squad in response to his own losses. It is not going to happen. The Soviet squad just barely gets out alive. So bloody right side of the map is actually going to give the Soviets quite a lot of advantages in this early to mid game. We see that Avionics is going for a tier 2 and getting out of Maxim. So what he seems to be going for is kind of an area denial tool. Now he's going to be trying to move in his conscripts, getting a nice Molotov. Lots of damage on the Volksgrenadiers, burning one of those very unfortunate guys. And the Sturm Pioneers only will prevent them from, once again, pushing into this strategic point. Mine is going down to prevent extra Soviet pushes into the area. And Whoopi is just frantically rebuilding his Volksgrenadiers, trying to get some extra bodies on the field and some extra capping power. And that is a very good idea, because right now what he's of course going to be lacking for a while is just the ability to capture points and to put bodies on the field. Avionics has got, of course, a pretty big advantage over his victories, but he's going to need to capitalize on it lest his opponents recover. And of course, the biggest problem with losing units in the early game is the fact that you're losing the manpower, because you haven't really gained all that much veterancy yet. So it's not, in a way, as bad as losing a vet-free squad, or in the case of the OKW, a vet 5, or, you know, any kind of veterancy is bad to lose. Cuba wagon being pushed back by the Maxim, probably gonna need to be a little bit more careful, especially now that there's shock troops and there might be an AT gun soon. Of course, Avionics has picked the Soviet shock army, which are gonna mean some Papa Shock conscripts. Of course, once the shock troops are spotted, the Germans will know that it is something to deal with shock troops. So they're gonna have, they're gonna have a few guesses. It could be counterattack. It could be shock rifle frontline tactics, or it could be shock army. And the shock army is definitely not the most picked out of those, but it is you know, pretty frequently seen. So now it is a possibility that Whoopi's going to have to take into account. We have a two-pronged engagement. The attack on the right side for the Soviets doesn't go very well. Nice usage of the Sturm Pioneers from behind the heavy cover and the Kuba-wagon, which can now be repaired. But on the left side, the combination, of course, of the Maxim and the shock troops is going to obliterate these Volksgrenadiers and send them home. Grenade almost nails them, and yeah, this is not going to be that great if you're a Nazi. We see that the shock troops can now cap essentially all the points on the left-hand side. The Germans are ahead when it comes to the VPs. They're at 500 to 367. So, of course, the Soviets are going to need to start turning up the speed on that, kicking some gears. The Soviets are building a lot of mines right now from their common engineers, which are a very good idea right now, because we see that a Lux is coming on the field for Whoopi. So both that AT gun and the mines are going to be excellent counters to that. Looks like avionics is trying to prepare for essentially every eventuality, which is a good choice. Although there are some minesweepers over here, Sturm Pioneer minesweeper squad. So that is also a smart choice from Whoopi, just deciding to be more cautious of his own. The problem is he's not really using the Minesweeper because he's wanting to fight with his Sturm Pioneer squad. Oh, shock troops trying to get in there, but there's too many Volksgrenadiers. Has to run away. And the Sturm Pios, unfortunately for the Germans, were forced to retreat without really managing to sweep anything. So this could be pretty bad. Right now, the Lux is not in the path of any of the mines, although there is a mine exactly where it is. I cannot see it. But it is somewhere over here. Here it is, and it is going to be blown up. So now Panzer II Lux knows that there's mines around. He is lucky that that happened before any AT guns were commissioned by the Soviets, because if there had been an AT gun in ambush waiting for that Lux, right now it would be dead. Thankfully for it, it is alive, and it is now able to run back to Mama and repair by the Sturmpile. So that's pretty okay for the Nazis. We know that Whoopi is going to be getting the fuel superiority soon, because he's going to have more strategic points, and he might even get a shot at some harassment of the VP, while the Soviet is playing very defensively when it comes to his infantry, and his map control is suffering as a result, so he's not really getting the advantage that he perhaps should have from having wiped out enemy units in the early game. So this is pretty bad for him. But what he can do to avoid this is... I love that. What he can do to avoid that is to be a lot more aggressive when it comes to the left-hand side, as opposed to playing defensively. And this is going to be more difficult right now because of the Lux, but it is pretty much going to be imperative for the Soviets to think about that. For some reason, avionics is not going for any AT guns, but it looks like he's going to go for a T-70. So this is putting him, of course, into a more vulnerable position when it comes to the Lux. And finally, the Germans have learned minesweepers. So now they have managed to essentially spot all the hidden traps that the Soviets had positioned. And the Lux is able to walk around with impunity. The Soviets are trying to get around the Lux with their own infantry, but that's not going to be the most effective move, as the Lux can just kind of walk into the shock troops, which have no defense, and avoid the conscripts, which are equipped with anti-tank grenades. AT gun is coming on the field for avionics, but it is a couple of minutes too late, because at this point the Germans have mostly either swept or already run over most of the mines. So with that, the Lux is not really going to be in any position to walk into any traps and die. We'll see though, we'll see. It can be very reckless as it is right now and walk too close to any enemy conscript squads with anti-tank grenades, but I sincerely doubt that's going to be the case, because this Lux has already taken so many engine damages that it perhaps will want to be more careful. I mean, that's what I'm guessing. In any case, Whoopi is starting to shoot ahead when it comes to the teching, but Avionics still has a lot of fuel in the bank. And, well, the Lux barely gets the engine repaired and is able to get around. That's why he had so little fuel, because he went for a second Lux. Well, I totally missed that. I am not sure that that's the best idea ever, although it seems to be working. Almost destroying the AT gun crew. He's lucky that the first one had taken so much damage, and now is not able to support the push. Right side finally recaptured by the Soviet Union, and now they can push back into the center and take back the VP. The VP situation is pretty bad when it comes to the Soviets. 267 to 500 means that now they need to be a lot more careful in the next few minutes, and really in the rest of the game as a whole. Need to be a lot more careful about how they're going to be handling their VP situation. How much are they going to have to leave by the VPs in order to keep it secure, to prevent any just random captures from really sinking their point count and bringing them close to defeat. Merge. Well done. I like merge. It's a good skill. Still though, with the double Lux on the field, I think that the Soviets are going to be looking towards the Tier 4, and yeah, in my opinion, that is a great move. Getting out of T-34-76 is a great move also, in my opinion, because now he can deal with those Luxes on a total superiority basis. Whoopi has gone for another SWS supply half-track, but that just means that he's going to get to Tier 4. With 135 fuel right now on the bank, it means that he's not going to really have anything left to use the Schwer Panzer quarters, so he might just get some Obersoldaten or something. But still, those are going to be countered by the T-34-76. So the T-34-76 right now is pretty much at the best timing. Grenade assault on the machine gun. Lots of damage, but not enough. On the right side, we do seem to have a bit of a push from the Germans, once again capturing the VP, but the center VP has been taken by the Soviets, so that's pretty okay. And in the meantime, it seems like the two Luxes are just playing a very, very vital role in repulsing these Soviet infantry pushes on both of the flanks. But now that the AT gun is able to turn around and fire on the first Lux, it's probably going to need to escape. The second Lux has taken an engine damage from an anti-tank grenade earlier, and now the T-34 tries to move in, but you remember that mine that was placed at the beginning of the game? Yes, it does come into play now and stops the T-34's rush dead in its tracks. And actually that puts the T-34 in kind of a dangerous position, but the Raketenwerfer is not in any position to really challenge this as he's back at base. In the meantime, the Lux also manages to take down a 76mm field gun, which is of course quite interesting. It is dangerously close to some mines, but hey, you know, as long as it can get some kills and a lot of disruption. Of course, as you can see right now, the whole Soviet trifecta of points up here is cut off from supply, so now they're going to need to re-establish control over the right side, and they, by God, need to get some harassment done on this left-hand side VP, maybe with some engineers, maybe with some conscripts, but they really do need to send a random infantry squad out here. The reason he's not doing that is because he's afraid of the Luxes striking him down and wiping out his squads because they're isolated. But I think that that's really kind of a null and void point if you're going to be sending out there like a Vet Zero engineer. Just try to do that and try to get some pressure done on the Germans so that they at least have to shift some more forces to the left-hand side, and of course so that you can get some VP control yourself. However small it is, because right now with 214 points, the Soviets are going to need to start to really worry about their VP situation. Anyways, I'm going to shut up for a bit. Kind of gameplay for itself. It seems like in the meantime, the Soviets are building up, but the Germans are also building up, and the T-34 is not going to really have that much of a chance to shine, at least if it's not very, very cleverly used. So as of right now, the T-34 is kind of checking the Luxes. while the Raketwerfers are checking the T-34s, or the single T-34. So no side really has the upper hand unless one of them makes a big mistake, which so far hasn't happened. But who knows? Mistakes happen. Finally, some overtures to the left-hand side by the Soviets. Yes, glorious Papashas, but here comes Luke's AT grenade. Prevents him from chasing down the vet-free conscript. Obersoldaten are on the field for Whoopi, and that was pretty much expected. He's going for a P4 instead of the Command Panther. That's probably a good choice because it's going to be more versatile. Honestly, at this point, he hasn't seen anything that will tell him he needs a Command Panther or a Panther in general. Because he knows that his opponent is not shock rifle frontline tactics because he's got Papashas. So he knows he's shock army, and so the danger is going to be artillery and not heavy armor. Which means that a medium that can both deal with enemy infantry and hunt down artillery is going to be a good choice. What is not a good choice is standing in the face of our Raketwerfer and sending your shock troops right in the face of a Panther II Luke's. Of course, T-34 can escape thanks to its pretty good mobility. And German infantry trying to push in is going to meet quite a lot of firepower. T-34 decides to push back in, which is a very dangerous move because the Raketwerfer could have been waiting. Thankfully for it, the Raketwerfer was still moving in and still taking a while. But now here comes the big Nazi push of a lifetime. We've got the second Luke's kind of sitting back and not doing much, but we've got a P4, a Luke's, and a couple of infantry squads pushing in towards the fuel point. Nice anti-tank grenade, but it was at a full HP tank, so not really able to do that much damage. And now he's just kind of trying to get the AT gun to fire on those guys, but AT gun is kind of alone as well. So he's trying to set up the machine gun to cover the AT gun, but oh wow, that was a ridiculous Zist shot, detonating the mine and destroying the Luke's. And now these two AT guns, another mine detonates, and the second Luke's is in big trouble. The first AT gun is also in big trouble, and it's probably going to go down. Can it get another shot off before it dies? No, but the second AT gun is still operational very much. It fires and destroys the Luke, so both of the Luke's are burning in the fields of Minsk, and or rather in the swamps of Minsk outskirts. And the Panzer IV is going to have to limp back to base as well. Very good victory for the Soviets. They've also managed to capture the left-hand side VP and the right-hand side VP and the center VP. So now they've got a triple cap over the Germans, and especially they can continue pressuring and harassing on both sides now that the Luxes are dead. Now that the Luxes are dead, avionics can focus on defeating P4s and Tier 4 units and not really have to deal with enemy armor on the flanks all that much, or at least compared to earlier. So at least we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, this is a very big victory for avionics. If you can capitalize on this, and capitalizing on this in my opinion would be, ooh, lots of T-34s. I'm not sure I entirely agree with lots of T-34s, but yes, that is one of the things he could do. In general, he's going to need to ramp up his territorial game, his map presence, pushing around more around the map. And wait, did he steal? No, he just built another AT gun. Well, there goes one of those tanks. Walked into our Raketwerfers. Well, now instead of 3 T-34s, he's only going to have 2, which is bad. Still though, if he can capitalize upon his victory, he is going to kind of turn back the momentum, which had been swinging in the favor of the Germans. The Germans to come back from this have 2 choices. Either they can try to double back into a defensive strategy, or trying to launch yet more offensives, possibly by getting... Oh no, it's this. Possibly by trying to get out some big late game units and, you know, trying to use those. Like maybe he might want to settle down into a defensive position and getting out a KT, or he might want to wait for a Panther command tank if he sees, you know, more T-34s around and try to use the command Panther to deal with the enemy armor in a more aggressive role. If I were him, I'd probably try to go for a KT, but that's what I would do. Which might not be the best choice, because honestly, what might be the best choice for him is trying to get out aggressive, trying to purchase, you know, more aggressive units and employ a more aggressive strategy, trying to deal with the enemy Soviets before they can become too much of a nuisance, too much of a momentum swinging factor can get into their hands. Because as long as they win a few engagements, that does not mean that they're going to really take the initiative and start to pressure you, but if you let them do that, then they're going to definitely do it eventually, and that could be bad. Instead, it seems like the Germans are trying to play very defensively, using their advantage when it comes to the VP game, and their kind of inherent late game advantage, which might be a good idea, but it also might turn into a disaster, because as you can see, the Soviets are loading up on support weapons extremely aggressively in a way. So if the next unit for the Soviets is a Su-85, and then perhaps one or two units die and they're replaced by an artillery piece, then the game can very quickly turn ugly into a kind of Soviet defensive line, kind of spanning from the munitions on the right to the center, kind of just slowly but surely moving forward, creeping forward, hammering down whatever buildings are around, and then eventually kind of erupting into the base. And all the while, random conscripts cap the left-hand side. And all throughout, the center point and the extreme right point are firmly held by the Soviets. So that would be pretty bad for the Germans. But we do see a command Panther on the field for Whippy. And the command Panther is going to be answered by a Su-85 from Avionics, which is not a bad choice. It's going to need to be careful that it doesn't get outflanked by the P4 or the, not Su-85, the command Panther, as it is trying to target down the other one. But hey, that's going to be that. Yet another T-34 goes down to Raketenwerfers. That's honestly pretty negligent. You really should never lose T-34s to anti-tank guns in an optimal circumstance. First, optimal circumstances don't really exist, but like T-34s are pretty easy to preserve versus AT guns, considering how quick they are at reversing away from danger. Still, Avionics can come back into this, despite his losses. And if one side can lose his tanks to an anti-tank gun, then the other one can as well. And while there's two Raketenwerfers on the German side, there's actually free ZIS-free AT guns on the Soviet side. And while the Raketenwerfer may have much superior DPS, or you could say DPM, because it reloads a hell of a lot faster, the free AT guns are going to have a very, very strong kind of broadside damage. If they can hit a Panther and penetrate it, if they can hit the P4, and they're likely going to penetrate it, you know, that kind of stuff.
Enemy forces are neutralizing a sector.
Nades. Wiped a vet-free Volksgrenadier. That is not something you want to see. Oh, is he gonna forget about the Obersoldaten squad? Almost did. He was lucky that he barely remembered about that. Losing that Obersoldaten would not have been the best thing ever. Yeah, so it's kind of like the Soviets building their own little defense, and the Germans trying to bang it down. Well done. That was a big mistake. Here comes the ram, I think. What? No ram. I think the ram should have been attempted here to take down the Panzer IV. But Su-85 proving its worth and pushing back both the Panther and the Panzer IV veteran. So that's a pretty great thing, and the conscript is going to intercept these Raketenwerfers, sending them home. And now, actually, there's a relatively unique opportunity. They can go after the Schwerpanzer, but I don't think he'll do that. He probably thinks that's a little bit too dangerous, and I can't blame him for that. But right now, the Schwerpanzer quarters is really unprotected from anyone. Germans are going for a Stuka, which is of course trying to deal with the anti-tank guns mostly, but also the machine guns. In general, trying to deal with the defensive strategy of the Soviets. I am not sure that that's the best idea he's ever had in his life, but I can see where he's coming from, where he would want a Stuka. I'll retreat those conscripts. In my opinion right now, the answer is not artillery, but more mobility when it comes to the Germans. Because if they can kind of exploit what has been the Soviets' paradoxical weakness this entire game, which has been map control and the ability to move troops around, because again, they've gone for such a defensive strategy, the Germans could just concentrate all their forces onto one sector of the front line. As you can see, the Soviets have kind of a Nutella deployment. They've got everything spread out over the entirety of the front line, whereas the Germans... Oh, where's the barrage falling? Okay.
The enemy has killed another infantry squad.
Yeah. The Germans have kind of like the donut filling deployment. They've got everything into one area. But if they do not make use of that, then that's pretty useless. Instead, they can do something like this, you know, kind of try to hit into one place at a time and make use of a local superiority. Of course, the worst idea for the Germans is to do so in the center, because if you do so in the center, then the enemy can come in from both sides and close the breach, as it may. Run away, T-34. Oh, you're lucky that that missed, but you're still gonna die. Yet another T-34 kind of wasted for no real reason. It moved forward without any support, and it's really, really sad to see this done over and over again. Volksgrenadiers move in, and actually they can Panzerfaust the Su-85, which is in big shit. And right now the Su-85 is also taking fire from those Raketenwerfers. Su-85 is dead. Panzer IV Ups J also providing support, but the anti-tank gun is going to prevent him from moving in too closely. But with the Su-85 dead, once the Panther and the Panzer IV are repaired, the Soviets are going to be essentially defenseless against the German armor. Once again, losing tanks to Raketenwerfers. Really, really, really sad that he was so kind of reckless with the usage of the armor. Because right now he has lost essentially most of his expensive, valuable late-game units to just Raketenwerfers, which of course are very nasty to deal with, but you should not be losing your tanks to AT guns. Again, just run away.
The sector is at risk.
However, the Germans are making an even bigger mistake by going for a second Stuka. What this is going to do is slow down the German momentum by quite a bit. Now, how much is a Stuka when it comes to pop cap? No, I want the German HQ. Thank you very much. 12. So what he could have done with that was perhaps go for another infantry squad. Perhaps, I don't know, wait until something died and then go for some other vehicle. Perhaps he could have gone for a map hacks, you know? Although he does not have battle headquarters. He should go for a battle group headquarters to keep his infantry healed up, which he has been doing by spending a lot of munitions on medkits from Sturm Pioneers. Still though, what I'm saying is that the second Stuka really kind of subtracts from the German momentum it makes it more difficult for them to really mount up these big offensives that can shake the Soviets to their core. There goes the Obersudan squad, wiped out by the shock troop. Very well done. That kind of eliminates yet another offensive asset for the Germans that was kind of crucial to deal with the Allied infantry and support weapon teams. Now that that's gone, well, it's like, yes, here comes the Panther, but with the Panther alone out here, you know, the AT guns can just kind of turn around and fire upon this guy, forcing him to escape. With 2 Stuka rocket launchers, yes, sure, you can suppress the AT guns every once in a while, but what if, oh no, the T-34-76 comes in around into another side, then your 2 Stukas are pretty worthless. You're going to need to rely on your other units, which may or may not be in position to do so. So here comes the Panzer IV trying to react, but it's kind of dangerous because, again, there's conscripts. There's more combined arms for the Soviets over here. And the VP game has been turned around completely. Now that it is the Soviets who are ahead, 170 to 129. So things are looking pretty grim for the Germans. Looking pretty grim for the Germans. You what, mate? Who's retreating? Anyway, more T-34s, more Su-85s. I, in principle, agree. He needs to be more careful about these Raketenwerfers. It's not the first time this has happened to him. But with the Il-2 Sturmovik attacks, he is able to put them to flight, which is, of course, quite good. Can he capitalize upon this? Yes, he's going to capture that mid-VP. Which, to be fair, it was not relying on the defense of the Raketenwerfers, it's relying on the defense of the Stukas. And here comes the first nuke attempt by those Stukas on the infantry. Kind of successful, but now the second conscript squad can just kind of walk around and take their turn. Obersudan getting completely gunned down by Il-2 Sturmoviks from the air. And the Volksgrenadiers trying to move in and get machine gunned. Here comes a second Stuka barrage. Is it going to be on the support weapon line? Yes, it is. But it completely misses thanks to a nice dodge from Avionics. Is this going to be enough, though? Because the dodge has kind of repositioned, or forced to reposition the AT guns. So now they're kind of out of position, and the Panzers can now just walk in, mostly with impunity, but the Panzer IV is taking massive fire from the Su-85. Su-85, which is probably going to get the last winning shot in on the P4. Overkill shot coming in from the ZIS-3. T-34-76 for some reason feels like it needs to move in again, which might not be the best choice ever. But yes, victory for the Soviets. They're able to cap the center and destroy the veteran P4. And I wonder if Whoopi is going to go for another P4 or try to get something else. In my opinion, that's what he wants to do. What he wants to do was refer to the P4. Because right now, he's got 2 Stukas, which still, in my opinion, is the biggest mistake he's done. And he's got a utility Panther, which can be useful. What he needs is versatility against infantry, and he needs something that can help push out on the right side and get some harassment done on the right side. VP. More Stuka barrages. These are well done, and they destroy 2 AT guns, but it's like, what can a Panther do without the support of the P4? Can merely wait for the infantry to clear out the ATs and push away the Su-85. But that's neither here nor there sometimes. Sometimes it's just not realistic. T-34-76 is able to, because of this, just kind of poke at it. And yes, the Soviets, yet again, keep the VP. And there's a Jagdpanzer coming on the field. That's a big mistake as well, because what the Germans need, again, is map control, initiative, pressure, medium armor, charging in, you know, not
points
oh look,
remaining.
I'm gonna have my tank destroyer. It's like, what are you gonna do with every time you buy a unit, you need to think about, like, what are you gonna do with it? What are you gonna do with a tank destroyer right about now? You're gonna kill, like, a T-34 and an Su-85. It's like, yeah, sure, that's pretty okay, but none of those units are particularly that high of a priority. They're not the kind of unit that if you leave it alone, it's gonna win the game on its own, like an IS-2 or something, or an IS-152. So you don't need to buy a tank destroyer to deal with any of these. It's a nice bonus if you don't need particularly anything else. And right now he does need quite a few things. He needs, again, map control, initiative. So he needs something that can bring the fight to the enemy, like a P4, like more infantry squads. The Stukas are working out pretty well for him, but now here comes the Sturmovik attacks, forcing away his 2 infantry squads out of 3. The third one is back at base, reinforcing because it was forced away earlier. And oh look, his entire push is now completely out of action. And what's even worse is the fact that he's got 2 artillery pieces that are pretty vulnerable to just getting flanked by T-34s. And guess what? With the Jagdpanzer 470, especially now that the Allies know where it is, it's pretty easy for the T-34s to just flank around and make sure the Jagdpanzer 470 can't do basically anything. In fact, the Jagdpanzer 4 takes a lot of damage just on its first engagement. The Panther tries to flank around the Su-85, but is this a good idea? Yeah, because the T-34 is, it's got a damaged gun, and the AT guns are not turned around correctly. The Panther, though, does not stick around to get the final blow in on the Su-85 because of its own fears for its life. So I guess it's going to survive. Get more rockets falling down on the Soviet troops, but the Soviet troops are made of stellinium, so unless they're just wiped out, which they were, it doesn't really matter all that much, because guess what? 3 infantry squads on one side versus 3 infantry squads plus 2 engineers plus a machine gun plus another infantry squad that's building plus 2 AT gun crews that can cap. And the only support on the German side that can kind of equal that is the machine gun, which can also cap, but it's really not the same thing. So, Allies, map control, Germans, not map control. The Germans need boots on the ground right now. Going for a P4 is not the worst idea, but he really needs infantry. Like, it's not even about the quality of units he pushes out anymore. It's just about whether they can cap or not. And going for a P4 at this point, after already purchasing a Jagdpanzer 4 and 2 Stukas, after losing his first Panzer 4, or, well, I mean, the first Stuka had been purchased before he lost the Panzer 4, but it kind of screams of too late, to be honest. I don't think he's gonna really have any more chances of coming back into this really stably. Because yes, he can continue dropping rockets on the Soviet defenses, but he can only do that with every Stuka. He can only do that like once every, yeah, this is every minute and something, but it's, you know, they're veteran too, so these ones are kind of like, he's lucky that he's vet 2 and he's got the extra fire rate, but it's still not enough to just kind of stop the Soviet hordes. These are Soviet hordes. Also, this T-34 can cap, and now it's going to cap on the left-hand side. Pretty dangerous move, but with only 39 VPs left, I'm kind of seeing that avionics is preparing for the big final strategic push, which is going to be... Wait, did he spot the T-34-76? I think he has. It might be used as a diversion, though. As more German forces come over to try to stop the T-34, he can maybe try to punch through the center and deal with the Stukas. Maybe he's trying to deal with the Stukas himself, but nah, this T-34 is gonna die in some way or another. He is lucky that the Panther is being a derp, but he himself decides to go with the derp move. Oh, that's very sad. So that's gonna be a waste of T-34-76. What I think Avionics was trying to play at was using the T-34-76 over here to capture this left-hand side VP while pushing for the center. He's still able to push for the center. Smoke grenade would be pretty good right now, but Il-2 attacks, pushing back the machine gun, and making sure that the shock troops can cap the VP unmolested. Well, except for some rockets randomly. But the rockets will not stop the whole of the shock troop squad, and now they can come back into it and cap. Here comes a single Volksgrenadier hero trying to cap the right side. This is a very good move because otherwise the Germans right now would be completely lost. Oh, he decided to retreat the machine gun. That's a pretty bad choice. But now there's only German tanks moving in because there's no infantry. So the tanks are going to move in and get pretty hammered by AT guns. You know, the ones that are still left around. And that's kind of what I was talking about with, like, yeah, sure, it's good to have artillery or whatever, but as long as you can't actually come in there and finish what the enemy has and take their points, it's pretty worthless. He's lucky that he has managed to force the retreat of that Maxim, otherwise this infantry push would not succeed as well. Also, the Germans have captured the right side, but guess what? This T-34-76 should not be moving in there, and there's no other T-34-76 because it died on the left. Right. Anyway, the Germans are making a big push. And shockingly enough, they're doing quite well. Because the Soviets still had all their infantry back at base, but I'm still pretty confident that they can come back into this. They're about to get a triple cap, though, and that's actually very dangerous for the Soviets. 100 VPs left, but again, now he has to retreat his 2 infantry squads. Guess what that means? That means the Soviets cap this. And once, you know, even the Su-85, no, actually it does not have cap mode. Anyway, now he dodges the Stuka barrage and can come back in and cap the center. Once it's neutralized, the kind of danger of a very, very quick death is out. If he can capture it, he's in a better position. Do not lose your whole units to the Stuka. Good dodge. And now he can send one of the squads to the north, sorry, not the north, the southeast. Yes, he's doing that. And it's a vet-free squad, so it's going to be enough to deal with one Volksgrenadier. To augment that, he might even decide to send in the T-34-76. He's got also 2 engineer squads now, which means that one of those he can send to the left-hand side as a kind of sacrificial lamb. And with only 36 points left for the Germans, if the Allies can get a triple cap, that's half a minute. In fact, it's like 36 seconds left. So, yeah, no, not great. Now he's going to cap that. And now that he can cap that, he can turn his units back around. Again, what would be even better is if he could send something to the left. Nice move with the cloaked Jagdpanzer spawning for the artillery. But the Maxim survives. The Maxim group survives. And guess what? Oh, he's going to retreat. That's probably not the best thing ever. But he's still got his vehicles. So here comes the vehicles, destroying the Panzer IV with the Su-85. Now the Germans are going to try to move in with their infantry and various support weapons to cap the VP, wiping out a Volksgrenadier squad with the ZIS-3 divisional field gun was a stroke of luck. And now the Soviets really need to commit to the last struggle. If they can win this last engagement over the VP, I think their position is very solid. Where is the second T-34? There is a second T-34. I think it's making a mistake. It's making a big mistake. Why is it going to charge through the center? Really, the Soviets should be employing a much wider flanking maneuver, in my opinion, right now. But they're just kind of trying to fight fair against the Germans by squaring off against the superior guns of the Germans, which is not going to work. Thankfully, the Germans are just so weakened at this point that the enemy infantry is going to be torn apart by the 76mm. And despite how much damage the German guns do to the Allied tanks, now they can retreat back away from the AT guns. Just send something to cap! You have 53 VPs! You need something to cap. You need to cap. You need to send something to the left-hand side. You need to cap the center VP. They have nothing to stop you. It's 2 anti-vehicle units. It's 2 anti-vehicle units. The Stukas are gonna recharge. So you need to take it now. 50 points left. 35 for the Germans. He's trying to build sandbags so far away. That's probably a pretty bad idea because he's not in range if the conscripts just stand here. And now there's a machine gun. So now he can at least cover this area. Here comes the Stuka Barrage number 1. Stuka Barrage number 2 is going to be coming up now. Lots of damage on the capping conscript squad, but there is still a veterancy-free shock troop. And the German machine gun, for some reason, is back at base along with 2 German infantry squads. Oh no, why are they idle and not doing anything? They really need to come into the center. They really need to come into the center now and fight the final battle, but they're not doing so, and this is allowing the Soviet infantry to get the upper hand. The Soviet armor, in the meantime, is having a lot more problems because, again, they refuse to flank! It is incredibly aggravating that these Soviet tanks just refuse to go around and take out the Stukas and get behind the Jagdpanzer. This is insanely aggravating from both sides, but I still think that the Soviets, by attrition, when it comes to the infantry, are gonna win. Because they just have more infantry squads, so it is... like, the rotation of forces is gonna be in their favor. While the German troops are kind of busy running back to base and getting reinforced, the Soviet troops are gonna be... you know, some of them are gonna be going back to base, and some of them are gonna be fresh on the field. So here we go, 43 to 34. Can the Soviets prevent the Nazis from taking over yet again? We have a vet-free Su-85. Surely this is going to be enough to deal with the enemy armor, along with 2 T-34-76, which once again decide to charge in and fight the enemy head-on. They're not even taking the opportunity to deal with these artillery pieces, but at least their anti-infantry weapons are being used to good effect to push away the German infantry. There is only the machine gun left, but the Stuka Barrage is also helping. So now, what's it going to be? Well, maybe this T-34 is going to try to cap with capping mode, because the machine gun is now kind of overlooking this whole area, but there's nothing that can cap on either side except for T-34s and machine guns. I mean, honestly, the fact that these T-34s are not being used to flank, the entire flank is open. You can go around and surprise the enemy to no end. You could have taken down these Stukas so long ago by just sending 1 T-34 to the side. These guys go down to 2 T-34 shells. So it is actually quite aggravating that this has not happened yet. Right now, here comes the conscripts trying to get in there, and you know, they're going to be stopped by armor-piercing rounds from the MG-34, but is it going to be enough? Look at this. They've almost managed to cap it. They're going to run away. First Stuka Barrage, but the shock troops, why are they never using their smoke grenades? I was trying to say shock grenades for some reason. They capped the VP, 30 points for the Nazis. What is this Stuka Barrage going to hit? Is it going to hit this? No, it isn't. So now the VP is going to be recapped by the Germans, but with the vets-free Su-85 standing in the rear, no German armor is really going to be that safe in trying to push in. Of course, the Su-85 really needs to go on prioritized vehicles and not throw away its surprise factor, its surprise advantage, revealing its position. Here comes an AT gun artillery barrage trying to deal with the Volksgrenadiers who are capping. No one is trying to send a single infantry division to the secondary VPs to cap them. They're still all trying to slug for the center. And this guy is still not on prioritized vehicles! He needs to go on prioritized vehicles, otherwise he's just going to continue revealing his position. And now, oh look. He's lucky that he did not penetrate. He of course penetrated, because he's a vet-free Su-85. But now with a well-established defensive position and the artillery to back it up, can the Soviets even do anything? The shock troops need to use the smoke grenades. They really need to use the smoke grenades. in the center to let things cap here. Why are they not flanking? But at least they're doing a lot of damage to the Panzer IV J. So this offensive from the Soviets might have some good consequences. They're incredibly unlucky and do not penetrate the Panzer IV's frontal armor, but it is their fault because they did not flank. So of course one of the T-34 goes down. The second T-34 tries to push in. It's gonna die. The Stuka barrages are, you know, extolling a heavy price on the Soviet infantry that's pushing in. The Soviet infantry is gonna cap the VP, but the Su-85 goes down because it was using focus sight really without that much. No, why did he retreat? Why did he retreat? He's capping the left. He's capping the left. He should have kept all of his units here in the center. Should have kept all of his units here. Should have literally just kept all of his infantry here to prevent anything from coming in and capping. He's still gonna win because of this. He's still gonna win. Well done by sending one conscript to the left. But honestly, this was just so unnecessarily complicated for the Soviets. Wuppa's going to surrender. Oh my god. Avionics pulls through in the end. But damn, did he make it difficult for himself. Okay, what he could have just done is taken his T-34s and gone around, getting behind the Jagdpanzer. It's not rocket science to use flanking maneuvers, especially with T-34s. Okay, I can see why he's scared, because there's a bunch of mines everywhere. But minesweepers are a thing, and you know that they are. You have minesweepers. So before you go with your push, you just walk around your combat engineer. Make sure not to reveal it too much. You know, perhaps you can even just send it to cap a point so that maybe the enemy thinks that that's what you're trying to do. You reveal where the mines are. You kind of make a mental notation as to where they are, and then you do not go where the mines are. So, for example, you send your combat engineer around. You notice that the mine is here, and then you go here, which is even better because it flanks them even deeper. Anyway, he won in the end. Who cares? I want to thank y'all for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you soon.